So if you could all settle down, we'll move on swiftly to the next press briefing. So for this one, it will be on fossil fuel subsidy reform. And I have the great pleasure to welcome on the panel sorry, can I have some silence in the room, please? We're moving to the next press conference. If you have conversations, please go outside. Excuse me, we're moving to the next press conference, so can you please... Okay, back again. On the panel, we've got Honourable Damien O'Connor, Minister of Trade and Export Growth of New Zealand, Her Excellency Thordis Kolbrun Reykfjord Gylfadottir, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Iceland, the Honourable Minister Liatinu Wayne Soyalo, Minister for Commerce, Industry and Labour of Samoa, His Excellency Raul Cano Ricciardi, Vice Minister of Economic Relations and Integration, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Paraguay. So a very distinguished panel here. Thank you all very much for joining us. Sorry that we were running somewhat late, but please, let me introduce, I've already introduced, let me first turn to Minister O'Connor for his statement. Thank you.
Kia ora, and thank you very much for turning up. I'm very pleased to be here today alongside my colleagues from Samoa, from Iceland, and from Paraguay to provide an update on the joint ministerial statement on fossil fuel subsidy reform. We launched the joint ministerial statement in December, despite the original postponement of MC12. Today, we continue to advance the conversation on reform of these environmentally harmful subsidies at the WTO. Fossil fuel subsidies distort trade and investment decisions, making it harder for renewable energy to compete. Subsidies are a well-established trade issue. It makes sense, therefore, to pursue fossil fuel subsidy reform within the rules-based infrastructure and transparency frameworks of the WTO. I'm pleased to share that the statement is now co-sponsored by 47 WTO members from a range of developed and developing countries and from many regions. This number continues to grow. Most recently, we welcome Samoa and Paraguay as the newest co-sponsors. This broad and growing support is clear recognition that the trade community wants to continue and wants to contribute to global efforts to address climate change. It also reflects the momentum we have seen building over the past year on this issue, including in APEC and at COP26. Co-sponsors of this ministerial statement recognise the adverse trade, social and environmental impacts of fossil fuel subsidies. They seek the rationalisation and phase-out of inefficient fossil fuel subsidies along a clear timeline. The statement makes clear that reform needs to take into account the specific needs and conditions of developing countries and minimise possible adverse impacts on development. This is a fundamental principle that will continue to guide our efforts. Co-sponsors have agreed to share information and experiences with the aim of contributing and continuing to build a supportive international setting for addressing fossil fuel subsidies and to assist domestic reform efforts. But this is more than just an announcement. Co-sponsors have now adopted a work program to guide our efforts over the coming months. This is to help us in our objective to elaborate concrete options for advancing this issue within the WTO ahead of MC13. We've set ourselves a time frame so that we can move towards action in a coherent and transparent manner. New Zealand also welcomes updates provided by the TESD and IDP initiatives, which we are very pleased to co-sponsor. We look forward to engaging actively across these complementary initiatives. To close, let me thank all the co-sponsoring WTO members for their support for the Fossil Fuel Subsidy Reform Ministerial Statement. Together, we will demonstrate that trade policy can make a difference. Through our efforts, we will support progress towards a cleaner future that contributes to the Marrakesh Agreement objective of sustainable development, seeking to protect and preserve the environment we all live in. Let me now pass the floor to my colleagues from Iceland, Samoa and Paraguay. Mr. Thordis, over to you. Kia ora.
Thank you, Minister O'Connor, for giving me the floor and for New Zealand's leadership on this important issue. We now have an impressive roadmap for our work ahead, and we look forward to contributing to its successful implementation. I would also like to take this opportunity and welcome Paraguay and Samoa on board as new co-sponsors. The world needs to decrease its reliance on fossil fuels if we were to have any chance of meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. The fact that global subsidies to fossil fuels far exceed those for renewable energy should come as a wake-up call for all of us. We will not be able to keep global warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius while we continue to subsidize greenhouse gas emissions. Trade policy needs to support the green transition, and the WTO has an important role to play in that regard. The experience of Iceland demonstrates that converting to renewable energy makes economic as well as environmental sense. It's good business, actually. 85% of Iceland's energy supply is derived from domestically produced renewable energy sources. Yes, we are fortunate when it comes to natural resources in the form of hydro and geothermal, but our transition partly came about through economic necessity at the time. Up until the 1970s, houses in Iceland were still mostly heated with fossil fuels, and the cost of heating was subsidized by the state. At the time, it took a global energy crisis, maybe like the one we are experiencing today, to intensify our push towards renewable heating. And it was a huge decision for a tiny country that was not rich at the time. If I remember correctly, for some years, we invested and spent out of our GDP that you could compare to what the US did when they were actually sending men on the moon. So it was not a decision that was, it was criticized, it was big, it was huge for Iceland, and it didn't just happen. It took a political vision as well. By developing clean, green, and efficient geothermal heating systems, we managed to eliminate heating-related greenhouse gas emissions. But we also got rid of the need to subsidize more expensive oil-based heating and saved foreign currency that would otherwise have been necessary for importing fossil fuels. Iceland's savings due to this transition is estimated to be as much as €2,000 per person each year. We are confident that our experience can benefit global efforts to tackle harmful fossil fuel subsidies. We look forward to further advancing FFSR within the WTO in cooperation with all interested members and stakeholders, and we consider this work plan to be an important milestone on that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I would like to pass the floor on to Minister Liatino Wayne Soyalo, Minister of Commerce of Samoa. Sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. Colleagues, ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Talofa and good afternoon. It is an honor for me to be part of this environmental initiative on the fossil fuel subsidies reform. Thank you, New Zealand, for leading the work and your continued pursuit for Pacific countries to join. Our co-sponsorship of the Ministerial Statement on Fossil Fuel Subsidies reaffirms Samoa's commitment to see the reform of inefficient fossil fuel subsidies take place. It complements Samoa's climate change action and that of the Pacific region. Climate action being one of the Pacific priorities as endorsed by our leaders and integral to regional security efforts. No doubt we are here because we recognize the negative impact that inefficient fossil fuel subsidies have on trade, economic, environment, and social sectors. Samoa is committed to play its parts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that are causing global warming and to reducing its dependence on fossil fuels. Samoa nationally determined contribution target is for electricity to be generated from 100% renewable energy source by 2025. Under the electricity subsector, implementation efforts include innovative renewable energy technologies. As such, Samoa supports a high-level work plan to build in 2022 and 2023. We look forward to expanding this work on tackling fossil fuel subsidies reform in a multilateral trading system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'd like to move on to His Excellency Raul Kanu Rishiadi, Vice Minister of Economic Relations for Paraguay. Thank you, sir.
First of all, I want to thank Minister O'Connor and as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iceland, Madame Reit Jord, and the Ministry of Industry and Labor of Samoa, Mr. Letinho Wayne Soyolo. I'm very pleased to be here to announce that Paraguay has recently joined the Fossil Fuel Subsidy Reform Ministerial Statement, and we are happy the important discussion carried out in this frame will carry on in a specific forum within the WTO, which is the right place to advance the discussion given the existing subsidy discipline. For Paraguay, like all countries, the global environmental challenges such as climate change, loss of biodiversity, and pollution are of vital importance, and even though, like many other developing countries, only marginally contribute to climate change, stand ready to contribute in the global effort to tackle these threats. Paraguay is a main producer of clean, renewable energy and does not subsidize fossil fuels. But we still have a long journey ahead, for example, to improve our overall energy matrix. And to walk that talk, we have to an institutional and legal framework to achieve our contribution to the SDGs. We know that we have responsibility for mitigation, and reducing emission is of most important for us. But we should tackle this taking into consideration the common but differentiated responsibility, as well as all elements of sustainability, and we need to help to do it. Subsidies like the ones given to fossil fuels, but more broadly, other like some agricultural subsidies, not only have a negative effect on the environment and distort trade, but cost billions of dollars. Billions that can be used to strengthen financing to support mitigation and adaptation efforts in developing countries, especially those that are particularly vulnerable and to the adverse effect of climate change. We believe trade and environmental policy should be mutually supported and contribute to the optimal use of the world's resources, and the WTO is the center of the multilateral trade system, can play an important role in the discussion and achieving effective discipline for that more, so we can do it in accordance with its core principle and without impairing developing countries' capability to export and develop. And with this in mind, we joined not only the FFSR initiative, but also the IDP, which can also contribute to the negotiation of the new international legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution that will start shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. As I said earlier, we're running well behind time. We've got time for only one question, I think. I see Ravi. Please introduce yourself again, and anyone else who... Last person was the other question from the lady in green, but you might have to remind us what your question was.
Yeah.
And that's two, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ek. Actually, I'm surprised why you are convening this meeting. You're a secretariat official violating Article 6, Paragraph 4 of the Marrakesh Agreement. which is not correct because you are siding with a non-mandated issue.
Ravi, please, do you have a question for the panel,
My question
please?
is to the New Zealand minister. Minister, thank you very much. Is United States a member of your fossil fuel subsidies? Because it's the country which provides the largest fossil fuel subsidies in the world.
Okay, and very quickly, the second question, if there was one. If there's not, it's fine as well.
My question, Elaine Fletcher, Health Policy Watch in Geneva, was how can action on fossil fuel subsidies by WTO, which does have a rule-based system for dealing with subsidies, as I understand, so it is in your domain, as I understand. Please clarify if not. But how could that also support phasing out plastic bags, plastic products based on fossil fuels, which are the most insidious forms of plastics, infecting both the environment and affecting human health? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Relationship to plastics and fossil fuel.
Clearly, there's a connection between plastics and fossil fuels, and we want to reduce the utilisation of both. Most countries at WTO are committed to net zero. The path to that is dependent upon where countries start from. And so the use of subsidies at a time when we're wanting to reduce the use of hydrocarbons seems somewhat contradictory, if not insane. And so we think that we should be encouraging as many. We've got an open plurilateral agreement. We've got 47 members now committing to make progress in this area. As we've seen with fisheries, good things take time. We hope not quite as long as that, because there is some urgency to the challenges of climate change. So this is an initiative. The more, the merrier, and I just welcome the partnership that we've built with the members here and the 43 others, of course, who make up our group.
No, sorry, Ravi. I have to be
you
fair
need
to the other.
Understand my question.
Sorry, Ravi. We'll have to take the other comments if there's any other comments. We're running late already as it is. Any other further comments? No.
Yeah, the fossil fuel subsidy thing went way over me. But.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much, ministers. Thank you very much again, and sorry for the delay in the proceedings. There was no other comment from the panel? Was anyone wanted to comment? No. Okay. Thank you so much. So we have a last session, which is on trade and environmental sustainability structured discussions. And the panel will just be readjusted and will resume very quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for the guests.